Fantasy football podcast called Living the Stream comes to you each week. Streaming recommendations during NFL season, it's not just tongue-in-cheek. Quarterback, defense, tight end recommendations based on opposition matchup. Here are your podcast hosts, JJ Zacharyson and Danny Carter, living the stream.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Living the Stream. I'm JJ Zacharyson, the late round quarterback, and as always, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Danny Carter. Danny, what's going on, buddy?
Doing okay. I am a little upset that you haven't commented on my haircut.
Yeah, you did get a haircut, didn't you?
I did get a haircut, a pretty significant one on the sides.
I am now realizing this. Yeah, I like it. It looks good.
Yeah, thanks. I like it too.
This is the first time that like you and I have comparable length hair at the moment, because my hair is a little bit longer.
Right.
I'm probably like a week or two away. I kind of treat haircuts the same way I treat my beard, how I mentioned last week, where I shave kind of randomly. I kind of get my haircut whenever I'm like, I feel like I need a haircut right now.
I get my haircut every 4 months. So
like on the dot.
Not on the dot, but around. But it takes a long time for me to like get ready, and also I have to go down to DC.
Yeah, you got
get my haircut at Barbara at Hell's Bottom, which folks should check out. I think actually she did mention that a couple of people from the Living the Stream community have gone to this barbershop on my recommendation.
Do you get commission for this?
I do. I get $7,000 per person. So
right, because look, it is a $17,000 haircut. So to have the, I mean, that's nothing for them to give up for you.
Right. I had to take out a second and third mortgage to get my haircut this year. So we're happy about that. But yeah, no, other than that, I'm doing okay. I was just hoping for some nice words, but apparently that's too much to ask for.
So Jason in chat says that JJ equals early career Flacco. No, I don't think that's early. Early career Flacco was like buzz cut and didn't care about his appearance. Early career Joe Flacco is early career JJ Zacharyson.
Yeah, no. Wait,
I've evolved with Flacco.
Right. The parallel is eerie. You know?
It is the eyebrows, the hair. Yes, all.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to talk about hair evolutions, we have to talk about the cover guy for LTS probably for the rest of the season, Andy Dalton, whose hair is tremendous, and he has a great cut.
He does, and he's apparently the best quarterback in the NFL based on what we saw in Week 3. I mean, how down bad is the Carolina Panthers? I was thinking about this earlier today. Sam Darnold, right? He was their starter not long ago. He's crushing in Minnesota. Baker Mayfield, he was their starter not long ago. He's crushing in Tampa Bay. And then Denny, Joe Brady, who was coaching for them not long ago, is now the offensive coordinator in Buffalo, leading the best offense in football, or at least arguably the best offense in football. Like, and then DJ Moore is DJ Moore. He's obviously doing his thing. But it's like you could not be a more poverty franchise than the Carolina Panthers right now.
Poverty stricken. It is good though that they finally did the right thing. They benched Bryce Young, and now, as I said on the Roto World Football show today, JJ, now the Panthers will easily win the NFC South.
Right.
I'm serious.
I know. I mean, like the look. I want to see it happen against not the Raiders, of course, but to see such a stark difference between Bryce Young and the way that he led that offense to Andy Dalton and the way that he led the offense. I mean, I tweeted about it. Andy Dalton's yardage total in that game was higher than any yardage total that Bryce Young's ever had. Like cool. It was like he had a better game in his first start with Dave Canales than Bryce Young has ever had in his NFL career.
Instantly, like a real NFL offense, because Dave Canales is good. We know this, right?
I mean, is he the next? Is Dalton going to be the next? How old is Dalton? Like 38? He's got to be. Yeah. Okay. Is he the next Geno Baker iteration, or is he too old for that?
I think something like that. I mean, I think that he can play himself into a starting role for next year.
Yeah, he could at least get like a 2-year deal or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, it is as good as I could have imagined, and I love it for all my fantasy bags too, as the kids say.
Yeah. Deontay. And then there's some life with Jonathan Brooks when he comes back. Like there's a lot of good that came from Andy Dalton performing as he did. So I was telling Denny before we hopped on, so I go on walks a lot. I try to walk, like today I went on a 5-mile walk. Okay. So I'm trying to like drop a little bit of LBs, but also like just, it's good for my mental health to get out there. It's like an hour, 15-minute walk, right? Hour 20.
That is good. It is good to get out and see nature and experience a little bit of nature.
I was a little bit ahead with work today. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this a next step forward and go a little bit longer than I typically would on a Tuesday. And so I'm out on my walk, and and I realized that I'm going to start texting myself things that I'm thinking about that I could bring up on Living the Stream, because this is therapy for me and you.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
So my first thing I want to bring up, this is more of a Twitter thing. I tweeted about Patrick Mahomes having not, like, he's the second lowest 20+ air yard rate. He has the lowest 15+ air yard rate in all of football right now, which is really just playing into Rashee Rice. I mean, that's why Rashee Rice is just dominating right now, right? But I tweet that, and I totally forgot that during football season, when you tweet things, you immediately are met with fans of that team, and someone giving you some sort of contrarian viewpoint on what you're tweeting. I'm clearly tweeting what I'm tweeting from a fantasy perspective. Okay. I'm a fantasy football analyst. I don't tweet real football things generally anymore. Like back when I was in Number Fire and stuff, like in the 2018 range, like, I would randomly like write about running backs and their value in real football. I don't do that anymore. I haven't done that for years, right? Okay. And so I tweet this thing about Patrick Mahomes, and someone responds, and they just say 3-0.
That's so annoying.
Oh, that was their response. Was 3-0, right? And so then I responded, okay, because I too felt not like overly annoyed. I'm just like, just shut up.
Oh,
like, that's
no,
all,
I'm annoyed.
Right? Like, okay, so I responded and I said, I'm not tweeting this because I give it SHIT, is a kid show, about the Chiefs record. I'm a fantasy football analyst. That's what I said. I don't care what the Chiefs record is.
No,
I don't care at all.
I don't care.
And then someone else responds and says, you were just triggered. He triggered you.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm like, okay, so now whenever I explain myself that I don't care about the Chiefs record, I get all upset.
Are you crying?
You're saying these things. They don't understand that I'm sitting in my office with tears in my eyes because they said 3-0 to my Patrick Mahomes tweet. Right? Like it's just that interaction is just why I've tweeted less and less throughout my life as I get older. I hate that kind of. I just want a normal. And then anytime you respond or you jab back, there's always people saying like, Don't let the haters get to you. Guys, I promise you the haters aren't getting to me. I don't care. It's a fun thing. It's a cathartic thing to do. That's my first thing that I want to bring up.
Yeah, it's real. Just on that topic, I have a lot to say, but I'll start with this. First of all, this is your fault for having 200,000 followers.
Yeah, I know. I hate it. I honestly hate it.
Okay. So, I blame you mostly, but it's sad for me as your friend, because, really you can't post anymore.
Right.
And neither can Rich, and neither can a lot of my like good buddies who we used to post freely online and have a good time. Yeah. And the good times have been over for a long time.
Yes.
Because football fans are so awful.
Yeah. Like people say, oh, just ignore it. And it's like, yeah, guys, I do ignore it. Like it's fine. It's just a lot easier said. Like, I don't want to come across as if I was actually triggered. It's more so that it's really annoying to just be inundated with garbage in your mentions when you would ideally like to throw some jokes with people, like have a fun time with people on social media, right? And not just have to have this combative environment where you tweet something. And I do that data dump thread every Monday morning, and it's all objective things. Like they're all just I'm not
facts.
Yeah, I'm not throwing in any takes at all. And I even put in my email blast this week. I got an email back from someone that said, bad take. Charbonnet has been horrible. I didn't even have a take about Charbonnet. I literally just said that he's been a bell cow without Kenneth Walker, which is objectively true,
That
right?
is so
And it's just wild to me how people respond to things. It's more so the lack of faith in humanity that gets to me more than, you're going to yell at me for saying that someone's going to regress and they don't regress. Whatever. I don't care. Like, I know that my process is going to be better than your process. Guy 96 on Twitter,
69. So real quick on this front, after week 1 and after week 2, I posted some like EPA and success rate numbers for the Washington offense, and which were like shockingly high at least in my estimation. And I posted them, and I basically said, there's something here, like something is going on with this Commanders offense. And I think it's good. Is it a good offense? Probably not. But Jaden Daniels is making it go burr, right?
Yeah.
And so Commanders fans were all over it. I was cited in local media. My uncle and my aunt were calling me saying, "Hey, we just saw you on this show and that show," and they're putting up your posts and they're saying you say the Commanders offense is good. So I'm the number one Commanders fan in the world, right? During that time. Now, because I said I don't know if it's a good offense, they took extreme offense to this. So then on Monday night, when the Commanders go crazy against the Bengals and actually start scoring touchdowns, they come back and they go, "Any updates?
Right.
Any updates? Are we good now?" And I wanted to scream.
Yeah.
Because I'm the only one, guys. I'm the only nerd out here who was saying there might be something here. The rest of the nerds were saying you guys suck. And I was saying, no, you might not suck. And now you're mad at me?
Yeah, you were on their side. You were on their side. There was someone I mentioned on my 10 Trends episode last week that Chris Godwin, in the way that things were going after week 2, was going to regress eventually, right? Like he's not going to score a touchdown every week. He's probably not going to finish with a 31% target share, in that Buccaneers offense. Even this past week, it's like matchup dictated. He's going to see looks. Pat Surtain is on Mike Evans. Like it's not surprising that he had a decent outing. And someone responded and was like, he's not going to regress. And then after this past week, he's like, told you, just coming at me saying I was wrong. I'm like, I responded and I said, if this is how you view regression, just stop listening to my podcast. Like I don't need you as a listener because it's just obnoxious. Like that's not how things work. That's not how things work, but you don't care because you'd rather be miserable on the internet. That's what it comes down to, right? I have one more gripe. Okay. My other gripe is not even remotely related to online presence or anything. This is more related to walking on. So in my neighborhood / my area, there's really good greenways to walk on, right? So we can, they're all connected. I can literally take greenways through the woods and get back to my house and all this kind of stuff. It's great. It's part of the reason why we moved where we moved. And so I go on this walk. This is gonna upset some people. Okay. There are a few things that are more frustrating to me and annoying to me than when people don't have their dogs on a leash on a greenway on a path. Am I wrong for feeling this way?
No, and I'm sure that somebody will push back with like it's unethical to have your dog on a leash.
Someone probably would. Sure.
I would say that you can take your ethics and shove it because your dog needs to be on a leash.
Your dog needs to be on a leash, right? Like I'm walking and I see a dog and I don't see a human with the dog. How am I?
That's not right.
Because they're like around a corner, right?
That's crazy.
Like, how am I supposed to know how this dog's going to react? Not only that, when I go on a walk with one of my kids, how do I know how this dog is going to react to children? I have no idea. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to protect my kids more than anything else on the planet. If there's just an animal standing here, I have no idea what this animal is going to be like.
Absolutely. If I see a dog and my kids are nearby, my assumption is that dog is going to try to eat my child.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So no, you should not have it off the leash. I don't care how well trained it is. I don't care how much you think you know about dogs because you took an online course on dog training in 2018 or whatever. Like, no, I'm sorry that that doesn't matter. Get a leash, brother. Get a leash. You need a leash.
Yes. Dylan in chat says, "How did I stumble into adults crying YouTube?" So that's the look.
We're crying.
This is our show. Number one. Number two, I'm not tilting. I'm not upset.
Don't tell the newspaper that we're upset.
Don't tell the newspaper that we're upset.
I will say that it is funny as the season goes on. Folks are coming from the periphery and tuning in to Living the Stream live and being like, "Yo, do I start Devin Singletary?" And we're like, "We don't do that." Sorry.
Yeah, you don't understand. You'll learn. You'll learn, buddy. Yeah. No, I mean, look, what we say is not totally serious. It's not unserious though. Like, freaking put a leash on your dog. Like, stop. This is ridiculous. And I thought there was a dog that was loose that I needed to find the owner of, and then the owner comes around the corner like la-di-da, everything's fine, and I'm jumping like there's like I need to protect myself.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. One time, a lady who owns a horse farm near my house said, "You better have your dog on a leash," which he always is. You better have your dog on a leash because if he gets in that farm and one of those horses snaps its neck, that's not on me.
Yeah, that's true though.
And I was like, first of all, you're right, but secondly, why did you put that image in my head?
Yeah, that's also frightening. It's also frightening. You know what else was frightening, Denny, is the Las Vegas Raiders defense last week against Andy Dalton, because we did have them as a streamer. They scored -2. Tampa Bay also a little bit frightening against Denver. They scored 2, but then Indianapolis came through for us with an 11-point outing. At quarterback, we had Gardner Minshew put up 14. Derek Carr was a disappointment. He only had 8. Geno Smith 11.4, but Sam Darnold 23.2 fantasy points last week. Tight end actually not that bad, all things considered, given the position. Hunter Henry 2.9, he was the biggest disappointment. We had Gesicki at 8.7, Zach Ertz at 8.8, and Tyler Conkdaddy, what was it last week? Cardio Conklin, 14.3, 14.3 PPR points for Cardio Conklin. So tight end was better this past week. Quarterback was kind of meh. Defense kind of sucks. So we're kind of all over the place through the first 3 weeks of the season. So let's make things all good and only good in week 4. Kick it off with a quarterback streamer.
Oh man, my tab. I've lost the tab. Okay, here we go. Quarterback streamer. We have Andrew Dalton, the 4th Esquire against the Bengals, folks. We have a revenge game. Yes. Situation. The revenge will be so good and so extreme in this case. So this game has the second highest total of the week right now.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
Which is really cool, I think, for us. So last week with Dalton, I wrote about the Dalton-led Panthers offense in the regression files, which you can find on Roto World. I really went into depth, so folks can check that out. But here's the short of it. Only the Jets, Ravens, and 49ers had higher dropback EPAs than the Panthers in week 3, which is crazy. The matchup is pretty good. Cincinnati opponents. Let's see. I'm sorry. I did want to say Cincinnati opponents only average a 45% neutral pass rate. But I don't see that really happening here. I think the Panthers will be forced to drop back quite a bit here. The Panthers were 3% over their expected drop back rate in week 3. That's a big change from what they were with Bryce Young under center. And Cincinnati has only pressured quarterbacks on 16% of their plays. So I think that Dalton will be operating from a fairly clean pocket, which is important because Andy Dalton does not do well when pressured. I like him a lot.
Yeah, Cincinnati's secondary looked horrible against Washington. The defense in general just looked horrible against Washington on Monday night. That game was really fun, though. We finally got, I think it was Daigle who tweeted that we finally got like a COVID era game, like a pandemic era game. It was amazing.
Yeah,
like
really.
You don't realize how much you actually miss those back and forth shootouts until you actually see one.
I hate, I'm not saying bring back 2020 because overall it was a terrible year.
Yeah.
But football wise, bring back 2020.
Yeah, we need those. We need those numbers. We're gonna go to Sam Darnold next. I honestly don't love this spot for Darnold against Green Bay. Green Bay is it's like a below average opponent. On paper, I think they rank like 17th in adjusted points allowed. Darnold's not going to maintain his 10.3% touchdown rate that he has right now. Minnesota has scored 9 offensive touchdowns. 8 of them have come via the air. There's a lot of regression related things going on with Sam Darnold, but at the same time, you're just looking at this situation. Jordan Love, I think he'll be back this week. It sounds like he'll probably be back. It's a big divisional game too, which is probably they were looking ahead a little bit to a more important game with him. That's why they didn't force it last week. So Jordan Love's back. You're hoping for a little bit more of a back and forth. The weapons are there for Darnold to some degree. It's going to be really interesting to see how well Darnold performs when TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison are fully back. Like he's been doing it with, I mean, Justin Jefferson makes the offense okay, like, the weapons fine. And Jalen Naylor's actually been pretty good too. And Aaron Jones has been great out of the backfield, but like he doesn't even have his full deployment of weapons, like his arsenal. Like it's kind of crazy to think about what could happen in this KOC offense with Darnold once those guys are there. But, overall, it's like a very average game on paper, but because Darnold is playing well, I think that you could look his way.
I do too. Would you prefer Dalton or Darnold?
Yeah, the more that I'm thinking about it, the more I might go Dalton.
I would go Dalton.
I think the matchup is definitely there for Dalton. I feel a little bit better about that. Yeah, I might go Dalton. The thing that's scaring me a little bit with Darnold too is that this game total is only like 42 or something like that. Like it's not very high. You would hope that it would be a little bit better than that for your quarterback.
Also, you have Darnold at a 10.3% touchdown rate, which not going to hold.
It's not like there's going to be some regression with the passing attack, but yeah, I mean, I'd say Darnold is probably safer just from like a sample size perspective. But I do think that Dalton, like for my fantasy team and the way that I like to play, I'd probably be a little bit more aggressive with Dalton.
I have Gino, who's still widely available somehow. I mean, he had one big play against the Dolphins, and that was about it. But he gets Detroit this week, 47 point total, the third highest of the week. I wouldn't be surprised if that crept up a little bit as the week wears on here. The matchup is pretty good. Lions have faced the third highest neutral pass rate on the season, so teams are sort of leaning on the pass against them. Lions are allowing the 10th highest drop back success rate on the season. And so we have a better idea of what the Seahawks offense is going to be now. In week 1, you remember me tilting my face off and crying and coping about it. Seahawks are 12% below their expected drop back rate in week 1. Since then, 14% over that rate in week 2, and then 12% over in week 3. So I think we do have a pass first offense here. And Gino comes with a little bit of rushing juice.
Yes. Speaking of rushing juice, Justin Fields, he's not giving it to us.
No,
he's not producing as much of that juice this year. He's actually, his yards per carry is like over 2 yards below his career average right now, which is not fun. It's like, if you watch the Steeler games, what you're seeing is it's not just like a last resort for Fields. It's like a last resort for Fields to run. Whereas, when you watch him in the past, not only were there more design runs, but also the instant that he would be under pressure, he would take off. And we're just not seeing that nearly as much with Pittsburgh, which is probably good from like a real football perspective, because right now he's 4th in the NFL according to Next Gen Stats in completion percentage over expected. Fields is, and that's, with an offense that's not the strongest in the world from a personnel perspective. This week they get Indianapolis. They actually have an implied team total over 20 points, which we don't usually see with Pittsburgh. That rushing juice is still there to some degree. He's probably going to have 6 to 10 rush attempts in that game. Indianapolis is the 12th best matchup for quarterbacks so far in adjusted points allowed. I think Fields is a decent play. Like I would probably play I would probably play Gino and Dalton over him. I think he's probably in the same tier as Darnold this week, given the matchup against Indy, but I think he's fine.
Diego Lopez in the comments says that Rushing Juice is the name of a strip club in Florida, and I would just like to remind Diego that this is a family show.
Yes, yes, he needs to remember that. Need to remember that, Diego.
But we are, Justin Fields, if you're listening, we are going to need more Rushing Juice. That's what
M. Forsh says, rushing juice is what I call my morning dump after eating JJ's breakfast.
God.
Oh boy. Jeez. Oh boy. All right, let's move on to tight end, Denny.
Yeah, Colby Parkinson down bad, but if you're desperate, I think he's viable. Last week against the Niners, Parkinson ran a route on 26 of the Rams' 28 dropbacks. So that's pretty good. If you're getting a point per route, it's 26 points right there, baby. He's tied for the team lead last week with 5 targets. I do want to say that Sean McVay obviously did the right thing, shifted to a massively run-first offense with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp out. The Rams were 15% below their expected dropback rate against San Francisco. Expect that to continue. That obviously cuts down on pass volume for everyone, including Parkinson.
They didn't care how inefficient Kyron Williams was going to be They were just going to run the football. Like would he have like less than 3 yards a carry? I mean, he had like 3.5 yards per carry or something like that.
Right. He totally got away with it based on volume.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, I think that the Parkinson with a little bit more 12 personnel too. I mean, he's probably going to be, decently involved in the offense.
lot more 12. Yeah.
Cole Kmet, I think, is probably the easy go-to this week because his route participation has now increased week over week. We have a really inept coaching staff in Chicago, but they're at least doing the right thing and giving Cole Kmet the bulk of the routes at tight end when they weren't doing that in week 1. It was the Gerald Everett show because Shane Waldron has some weird infatuation with Gerald Everett, and Shane Waldron stinks, man. He's just not he's not cut out for the gig that he has right now. It's really, really frustrating because not only that, but I actually think, and I mentioned this on 15 transactions, I actually think if you want to buy super, super low on Caleb Williams right now, like super low, they have go look at their schedule for the next 4 weeks. It's unbelievable. Like really? Unreal. So maybe you don't play him this week against the Rams, even though the matchup is juicy. But if he does come through, then you feel a little bit more confident. And then the next 3 after that, we're all really, really good on paper. So I think the whole passing attack is kind of a buy right now. But back to Cole Kmet, he had a 23% target share last week. I don't know if Keenan Allen's going to go or not this week. I don't think anyone knows at this point, but some of that boost was because of Keenan Allen being out, but the Rams have been bad defensively to start the year. They're a top 10 team in adjusted points allowed to tight ends. I think Cole Kmet's an easy go-to this week among the tight ends.
Yeah, finally the Gerald Everett experiment lasted 1 week, and we're glad it's over. All right, who do I have? I have Tommy T. Tremble, the 8th. Against the Bengals. And you might say, well, why Tommy Tremble, Denny? What has he done? And I would say that the new look Panthers offense opens up some opportunity for Thomas Tremble. The Panthers used 2 tight ends at a 21% clip in week 3, which is a huge increase over what they had been doing. That led to 30 Tommy Tremble routes on 39 Dalton dropbacks. That's pretty good. He caught 3 of 3 targets for 29 yards. The Bengals are fresh off giving up 5 catches on 5 targets to Zach Ertz. So you could do worse.
I'm getting I am getting triggered by a comment right now, Denny.
Okay.
It's from James. James says, running back efficiency is a myth. Running backs with bigger workloads will almost always be less efficient per touch than scat backs who see 11 touches per game. This is, I'm assuming, in reference to my Kyron Williams comment. The Rams rushing attack was objectively not efficient in week 3. It was not a fit. I'm not saying that they shouldn't or should have done what they did, for
well, it made sense.
Yeah, right. I'm just saying you can't look at, this isn't even like a Kyron dig, right? This is simply like running back efficiency is not a myth. There are teams and players who will end up being efficient or not being efficient on the ground. If the argument is it's going to be easier to run on 3rd down against non-stack boxes when you're facing a totally different defense with 6 corners. Yeah. With six defensive backs. Yeah, of course. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. And Eric says, watch out when JJ drops in objectively. You're not wrong. I mean business when I'm dropping objectively. All right. Next one is Tyler Conklin. He had a 90% plus route participation now in 2 of 3 games, 95% rate in week 3. He finally turned that into a good target share, an 18% target share against New England. And I think he could get some looks this week. You get Pat Surtain on Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson's just seeing the next 4 weeks brutal for the Jets and from a secondary perspective. Like Garrett Wilson, I talked about this on my 15 transaction show. He's a buy hypothetically because all his peripherals are way better than his production, but the matchups right now are not good. He's actually kind of a sell because there might be people who say go buy Garrett Wilson because of the peripherals, but the next 4 weeks are still pretty tough. If you need a win right now, he's more of a sell, but if you need a win, or if you're looking like later in the season, he's more of a buy, in my opinion, with Garrett Wilson, which is really, it's one of those like weird ones. But I bring that up because if Surtain's on Garrett Wilson, teams are going to look to other players, other positions to throw the ball to. And that's what we've seen so far this year. Denver so far ranks 5th in adjusted target share allowed to tight ends. So I think that Conk Daddy could see, maybe a 15% target share in this game.
You're not going to like it, but Alan Lazard is seeing 12 targets this week.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably not wrong. And by the way, James said, bro, don't let the haters get to you. I'm sorry I couldn't help it. Don't hate me. I'm not when I'm playing a role here on this podcast. I'm not actually mad. I just want to talk ball, man. That's all it is.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Next one, Denny.
Tight end. Are we still on tight ends? Tucker.
Yeah, yeah. Cucker Traft.
Cucker Traft. He's next. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot here, but Jordan Love returning would make a big difference. Packers play the Vikings. So far through 3 games, Kraft has 56 routes to only 29 routes for Luke Musgrave, 7 targets for Kraft to only 4 for Musgrave. With Malik Willis under center over the past 2 weeks, the Packers are 20% under their expected dropback rate. That obviously will change dramatically with Jordan Love. So we could actually get like more volume on his side. But honestly, I think he's like the worst tight end streamer of the week.
Yeah, he's a deep play. All right, defense. I'm going with the Raiders. Bounce back week for them. They get Cleveland. Cleveland is bottom 5 in EPA per play, bottom 5 in pressure rate allowed. They suck. This game has a 37-point total, and Cleveland is the top opponent for defenses so far in adjusted fantasy points allowed. It just feels like a bounce back game for a defense that got absolutely slaughtered last week.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have the Titans who play the Dolphins on Monday night, and Tua is not playing. So you know what that means. It means some combination of Skylar Thompson, of Tommy Doyle. No, not Tommy Doyle.
Tim Boyle.
Tim. I think Tommy Doyle is a character from Halloween, I believe.
Oh, right.
Tim Boyle, his cousin, and then or maybe Snoop Huntley. This is what the kids are calling him now, Snoop. So
sorry, go ahead.
I just feel like you could just do worse than streaming against those quarterbacks.
Do you feel like there's an idea out there that Tyler Huntley is like really good? That people think that he's like good for some reason?
I think like beat writers, like national reporters are like, whoa, Huntley went to Miami, and no one cares.
Yeah, like when he stepped in for Lamar Jackson, I think he maybe had like a usable week or something in fantasy or something like, and obviously you can get some rushing production, but like he was not good. And maybe he does well in a better environment with Mike McDaniel. I'm not saying that like, I'm not projecting anything. I'm saying based on what we've seen, he really has not been that good of, I mean, there's a reason why he's been bouncing around teams and stuff.
By the way, Diego in the comments mentioned the Texans defense against the Jags. I think that's a really great play, and I would prefer them over, well, definitely over the Titans. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I don't think that they had the right percent rostered number, which is why we didn't mention them.
Over 50. Okay.
Yeah. I think it was way. Yeah. I try honestly with like some of these we've been doing like 40-ish%, but usually a lot of the guys we're mentioning are like under 20 for the most part. But yeah, that was one of the main reasons. All right. To recap, we had Titans, Raiders, Tremble, Conklin, Kraft, Parkinson, Kmet, Dalton, Fields, Darnold, and Geno.
And by the way, you can get these picks much earlier in the day on Tuesday if you are an LTS patron is what the word is, along with start sit and get your start sits answered on Fridays.
All right, let's go to the first question at with Parks on Twitter. JJ always describes Denny as his lovely co-host in the intro. If Denny was given the chance to intro, what adjectives, probably adjective, because I only used the one, would you pick to describe JJ?
Let's see. I would go with prolific.
Wow. You have to say that over and over. Can you do the intro?
My prolific co-host, JJ.
Thank you. That's a good adjective.
Yeah. I mean, because you produce a lot of hashtag content.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah. Also, Eric Allaire says sexy. That's another one I could say.
Sexy would be a good one. Yes. My sexy co-host. That would go over really well.
It would make this not a family podcast.
Right. You then could openly swear on this podcast if you started with sexy. All right. Next one's from our friend Neil Dutton, ndutton13 on Twitter. What is something you really don't like that you really wish you did? I always look at photos of meals featuring fish and think, wow, that's lovely. But I know my taste buds would rather bob for apples out of a communal. I don't even know what he's. He'd rather do something else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something gross.
Yes. So what is a thing?
Yeah.
What is something that you really don't like that you really wish you did?
Okay. I have one. Olives. I wish I liked olives because olives look good to me. Like my wife is a big olive fan. Greek and all that, and I'm like, oh man, those look good. And then I taste an olive, and it's horrible. So.
Yeah, I don't like olives either. I don't eat olives. And it feels like that's probably the one food that, like, I would honestly tell you that like 99.9% of foods that aren't obviously gluten and that aren't filled with gluten and dairy, because I don't know if you guys have heard, but I don't eat gluten and dairy.
I have not heard that.
Yeah. And so I would say like 99.9% of foods I will eat. Like, I don't mind. Like, do you mind food? Like, how many foods are presented to you where you're like, I'm not going to eat this?
Not many. I would say the two that come to mind, I'm not eating olives and I'm not eating beets.
Yeah. Like, but I would bet you if it was presented in front of me, I might be okay eating it. Oof. Like I might, another food that I don't like care for, but like, if it's in something like, I don't really care for like cucumbers. Because there's not much going on there.
No, there's not. I mean, you have to have something like you have the cucumbers mixed in with other salad stuff and some, dressing or whatever. But yeah, I'm with you. Someone said green peppers are the worst.
No, green peppers are great. They're delicious.
What's wrong with green peppers?
Especially, if you're like sauteing
but like my anti-beets thing. It actually grosses me out when I watch The Office and they have those like extended scenes of Dwight or someone else, Angela, eating beets, and I'm like, oh god,
yeah,
gross, man.
But on a non-food related thing, what is something that you really don't like that you really wish you did? I would say, well, I think that cooking is actually one. I don't really care for cooking that much. Like, I like grilling, I enjoy grilling, but like cooking, I don't really like. I also wish. It's something I don't necessarily enjoy. I just wish I was a better reader. I don't read enough.
I don't read enough. No.
Yeah. I wish that I was one of those people that like did a book a week, like that just like went.
That's so much. Though.
I know, but I would love for my brain to not be doom scrolling and instead laying in my bed reading a book. Right.
No, but
I wish I could do that.
But a book doesn't tickle that part of your brain that the doom scrolling does.
I know. And I always, and I'll be honest with you guys, like whenever I have like legit free time, like I'm talking like, Amanda's doing something and like the kids are in bed or something like that. And it's like maybe Amanda goes to bed early or something like that. Like my go-to, if I'm not going to go online and play video games with my buddies, it's literally, I'm just going to get ahead and work. Like I end up like working more, and because I enjoy that,
right.
But I wish there was a different thing that I latched onto,
right?
Like reading more. I'll read not a ton, but I'll do it every once in a while. But like it's just not nearly enough.
Yeah, I will say that the social media use, obviously, social media has largely replaced face-to-face interactions for people. Not entirely for me, but to a large extent. So when I feel like socializing, I'll go online, right? But if I was somehow able to like replace the socializing that I had before kids, then I probably wouldn't want to be scrolling so much, and I probably would read more. So I think those are all interconnected.
I bet they are. Yeah, I bet they are. My thing though is that like I'm obviously passionate about like what I do for a living, and I want to be good at it, and I want to produce cool stuff and like just do, because I enjoy it. I like it. But like it's more so like whenever I go and work during that downtime, it's not just like I'm trying to do stuff on Thursday that it's about to be Thursday. I'm literally like trying to like come up with ideas and like think creatively and do that kind of stuff, as opposed to like, so like that at least scratches that itch a little bit, like more of like the deeper thinking cerebral stuff, as opposed to like, I'm just going to grind out a random podcast episode or something like that.
It is something that I have to force myself to do. Is sometimes I'll sit in my office, and I will close my laptop and I will just try to think, like, just for not for long, not for an hour, but for like 4 minutes, like just to think like what do I want to write? how do I want to approach it, or like, what am I going to talk about on this podcast? And then I'll open up the computer and I'll start. But stopping and thinking, I know it sounds really basic, but it's something that we don't do. I don't do that enough.
That's why I like going on walks.
Yeah, it forces you.
It forces you to just think about, like, I have like a podcast in my ears or whatever, or like music and whatnot. But like, I'm not, like, half the time I'm completely zoned out. I'm not even paying attention to what's being said in my ear. I'm just thinking about random stuff, and it helps. It's therapeutic. It's meditative at the end of the day.
I chip foam golf balls in my backyard, and I do that, and that's a way to kind of clear the old head.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's a show on Netflix called The Perfect Couple. It's a short series. It's like a kind of a mystery type murder show. Nicole Kidman's in it and some others, and the father likes to do the same thing. Just goes out and shoots golf balls into the water, though, because they're rich.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would go broke.
Yeah. It's a pretty good show. I actually enjoyed it. Next one, at Justin White VA. Parcells once famously stated that as a coach, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken. Apologies to the kids. Has Tomlin once and for all proven that Parcells was an excuse-making fraud? He once again is making gourmet-level chicken salad out of some JJ-level poop bombs. Look, you know that I've been a pretty pro-Tomlin guy on this show and just throughout his time, because all I hear as a native Yinzer from friends from home and you know, on Facebook and stuff is people complaining about Mike Tomlin. And it's one of the most absurd things on earth. Mike Tomlin, I've said this before on the show for years. Mike Tomlin gets fired tomorrow. He has 20 head coaching, maybe even 25 head coaching offers the next day. Yeah. Yes. Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches in football, and he's been that way for a long time. Do you disagree?
Well, I mean, he's a dinosaur, but he's a great players coach. I think he would be best suited to be a head coach, obviously, but to hand the offense over to a modern mind.
It would be amazing to see Tomlin with I mean, we kind of had that to some degree when he had Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
Like at that time, that was an offense. I mean, he had Ken Wisenhunt too, who was a pretty decent thinker offensively.
Right.
But like Bruce Arians and his vertical attack, and at the time that wasn't a thing that people were doing as frequently as he was and stuff like that. And like obviously Arians then found a lot of success with other teams, but like, you know, we've had some of that. It would be amazing if we had more of that with Tomlin for sure.
Right. Like combining him with Arthur Smith is just keeping Tomlin in that sort of comfort zone of like, we're going to run it and we're not going to try to score too many points. And, you know, that approach is capped. That has a ceiling, right? Like the Steelers are 3-0, but no one would say that they're Super Bowl contenders, right?
I don't think so. I like realistic, but here's the thing. How many Super Bowl contenders are out there that have, also I'm looking it up, Ken Wisenhunt, I think might have been left with Cower, so it might have been the year before. But regardless, how many Super Bowl contenders are out there that don't have a legitimate quarterback?
Right. And I don't know if Justin Fields is good all of a sudden, you know.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm just saying like when we say Super Bowl contender, I feel like it ends up being a group of 4 teams no matter what. You know, like 4 to 6 teams. Yeah. And then, you know, it's not wrong, but then there's a large group, you know, maybe 10 more teams that are where Pittsburgh is now, where they're at least they have the potential to be competitive in the playoffs. Maybe not like, you know, you wouldn't put them close to being favorites.
Well, yeah, I'm just looking at like some season long stats here. Like the Steelers are 3rd to last in offensive success rate, you know,
right.
You know, they're not that offense. Eventually that offense is going to run into a buzzsaw and they will not be able to keep up.
I mean, look, there's been instances where that's been the case already this year. It's just that they've either played inept offenses like Denver, or, you know, the defense is stepping up like they did against Atlanta. last week, like against the Chargers, they played decently well offensively against the Chargers.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Relatively well. But yeah, I mean, like they have an offensive problem. They definitely do. Someone says, "Why does JJ look like Jimmy Neutron today?" Thanks.
Your hair is very high.
My hair is high, but it's just because I have a lot of it right now.
Oh, well,
yeah, guys, I have a lot of hair, so
a huge problem.
that's how I flip that insult and make it a positive.
All right, Jimmy.
But no, Mike Tomlin's a great coach. That's the bottom line.
He is, yes.
Justin White also asks, is it bad that when the commentator pronounced Tyler, I'll say how I used to say it, Beatty's last name, like a bidet, I immediately thought of my favorite Mediocre Poop podcast. I had no clue. Like, I loved Tyler Bidet. Is it just Bidet? Is that
Bidet? Now that's what we're calling him.
Yeah, I loved him as a prospect coming out. Like, he was one of my favorite kind of day 3 dart throws, really good production profile in college, little undersized, but could do it all. And all of a sudden, my world was flipped upside down when I learned that his last name's actually Bidet.
So Pat Doherty, my Roto World football show co-host, watched Tyler Bidet in college at Missouri, was a big fan, had always called him Beatty.
Yeah.
And was stunned to hear him. And I think this is a situation where a guy has one good game and changes the pronunciation of his last name.
But it's also like we learned this with like Devon Achane, where in college his name everywhere was spelled Devon with no apostrophe.
Yeah.
And then it was like there were a ton of different pronunciations with his last name, and then we learned that it was Achane. And then the biggest one I think is Tyrod Taylor, where I still don't know the answer. I have no idea if it's Tyrod or Tyrod. I
have no idea if it's Bijan or Bijan.
Yeah, and I look up all the pronunciations, and I still don't know because it seems like they're changed all the time.
They're always changed. So the Zoomers literally won't remember, but Pat Surtain had a father in the league. He played for the Dolphins.
Also,
he went by. He went by. So it started with Patrick Surtain.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how he started in the league, and then he had one good game, and he changed it to Patrick Surtain. Surtain.
Yeah.
And then he had another good game, and he changed it to Patrick Certain.
Oh, and I don't remember the Certain one.
So the announcer. I used to watch Dolphins games.
Yeah,
every week
sure.
And that back then, so the announcers were always correcting themselves. And there's Patrick Surtain. I mean, I'm sorry, Certain. I mean, it just depended on if he had an interception that day, then he would just change this pronunciation of his name.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's like if I just came out and said, no, actually, Zachariason was the right way to say my name.
Don't do that to me.
Or Zacharison, as some people say. Zacharison. I get everything with my last name. I don't even correct people. Next question at number 1 Punna. Rate the worst experiences. Okay. Number 1, picking someone up from the airport. Number 2, helping someone move. Number 3, helping an elderly person use the internet/technology. Ugh. Number 4, starting Mark Andrews in any meaningful capacity.
Yeah, well, the last one is the worst one.
The last one has to, honestly, I would rather do any of the other things than having. I mean, I have suffered through Mark Andrews for the first 3 weeks. I'd rather do any of those things versus the Mark Andrews stuff.
Yeah, me too. The moving thing. So back when I was in my 20s, the moving thing could be fun because you're with your friends all day. Yeah. You're moving stuff. You're having fun. You stop at the end of the day. You drink some beer. You maybe go out and get something to eat. That's
a pizza.
Could be fun, right?
Yeah.
Once you get to a certain point in life, it's no longer fun. The part about the technology thing. So. What Amazon has done with imprisoning the Thursday night game on their streaming platform has ruined millennial lives because now our entire purpose in life is to go to our mothers and fathers and teach them how to use, streaming,
Sure.
and I've had to do this twice a year, every year since this started, right?
Yeah.
Since Bezos' vision started.
Yeah.
And my dad has it's on the Amazon Prime app. What's that? What's an app?
Yeah.
Right, and so I have to go over it. Here's how you do it. And I write down directions and he still calls me. He goes, I don't, where's an app? Where's an app? And so I hate it. I hate doing it.
I'd say that's more picking someone up from the airport's fine. I enjoy picking someone up from the airport because it means that you get to see somebody and, maybe you haven't seen them in a while. And it's always a fun experience to just see the hustle and bustle of the airport.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's easily the best experience. And then I'd say helping someone move is next, and then the internet technology, and then Mark Andrews. That'd be my rankings for it.
Yeah. Sure. We'll go with that. The airport thing, I don't understand. I mean, it is when it's hectic and they're telling you, and the airport workers are telling you to move your car and stuff. Sure. That's annoying. But
sure.
You want to see the people you're picking up.
What's your main go-to airport where you live?
I go to National most often. It's also known as Reagan National Airport.
Yeah.
And then Dulles, but hardly ever BWI.
Okay. We have obviously just have Charlotte, but Charlotte's a huge airport. Like it's a big central location and highly trafficked airport. But yeah, I was curious because you at least have you have a lot of different options hypothetically to go to.
And you know what? They're almost all equidistant from me. Like there's not one that's closer. They're all a trek. Like to get to BWI, you have to go way north. Reagan and Dulles are both in Virginia. Well, actually, I guess Reagan National is probably in DC. Anyway, it takes a long time to get there. Yeah.
Rich Ryan in chat says airport dependent take. Going to LAX is reserved only for the closest people in my life. Everyone else can kick rocks. So I know there's some experiences that are worse. I mean, like Charlotte is pretty heavy trafficked and it's not like the most convenient thing in the world. I don't live like super far away from it. So it's like 35 minutes away from where I live. So it's not like the worst thing in the world. But my thing though with the airport stuff is that like you're doing that for someone that you hypothetically know and love. Yeah. And that's an easier thing to kind of do and experience than, I know that you're doing the technology thing for someone that you also would hypothetically love, but it's also very, very tilting. You're not going to have nearly as tilting of an experience just driving your car.
Just Dad, please just click on the blue app and then watch the game.
Yes. Next question at not commie-esque or Esquire is what I'm assuming. Do you pass to establish the run or run to establish the pass? Also, since this is a poop podcast, when your tummy is rumbly, do you let out a trial fart to see if it's safe? Or do you pass gas to establish the runs? Good.
So, I mean, there are times when you have to test it.
Oh, yeah, you got to test. Testing's fine. Testing's good.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not great. It doesn't really work out because it's a little much and it stinks, right?
Speaking of which, I learned that it's not just your butt cheeks that makes the sound of your fart. We talked about this last week. It's the sphincter that's actually doing that. So you're actually a little bit deeper in your butt whenever you're hearing something. So when you hear, that's why dogs can make noise when they fart because they have sphincters as well. I have to do the research. I got to fact check a little bit.
So you did your own research is what you're saying.
I think someone might have linked it to me, but I read the research. Yeah. I Googled.
Interesting. Well, Aaron Rodgers, I did not do any research and I still say that dogs can't make noise when they fart.
Someone got mad at me on Twitter this week for Googling because I took a screenshot of something that I had Googled. So I sent a tweet out. It was a joke about my 21-month-old son. I wrote it out, 21-month-old son. And someone responded and was like, no one says 21-month-old. It's really obnoxious that you're saying 20, he's just mad that I said 21-month-old. And so I had to prove it to him that he's wrong. Because in my opinion, the majority of parents under the age of 2 are still using months. Once you hit 2, that's when you go to years, is once you hit 2, right?
Yes.
Like that's like the goat. That is the norm.
It's a very normal thing. And people who get worked up about it, I feel like they just need to find more problems to worry about. Yeah. Because that cannot be one.
They're lucky that that's the problem for them. That the problem is that someone wrote 21-month-old.
That's what I mean. You must be like really young and have no problems because that cannot register on your problem scale.
My thing too is that I think that people who don't have kids, which I'm not talking down or anything like that. It's fine if you don't have kids, but people who don't have kids don't necessarily see like the change. Like there's a massive difference between 21 months and even 25 months.
Yeah, sure.
27. Like there's a big difference in each of those months, which is why people usually specify the individual month up until they're about 2, when things start to like, normalize a little bit. And, 2-year-olds are all just 2-year-olds.
I will say there are sometimes I have heard moms and dads say something like 32 months or whatever, like go beyond the 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me gets a little dicey because then I have to start doing math in my head. Right. And I'm like, okay, 36 months would be 3 years. So like almost 3. Oh, okay. I got it. I feel like going over the 24 mark is probably excessive. But again, I'm not going to get worked up about it. It's okay.
I think 2 years is the mark. Also, Cali Trader 8 in chat says, unfollow. This is getting bad SMH.
Yeah. Cali Trader wants us to talk football.
Yeah. Right. That's not the purpose of this show. Not the full purpose. I should say. Steak Knife Ob on Twitter. As 2 guys with full heads of hair, as you guys know, I have Jimmy Neutron hair. How much would it take you to go completely bald for the rest of your lives? This is not unlike the ocean thing, which you're still wrong about. But this is how much money to go bald, because I think in this case I'm taking less money than you to go bald.
Yeah, because you're not as vain.
I mean, I still am vain. I think the hair stuff, it just doesn't matter as much.
Right, because you're not as vain.
Yeah, maybe
so what are we talking about? We're talking about like a genie that just takes away all your follicles, or shaving it. What are we doing?
I saw a message from Rich that says, quote, talk more football, ... Let's go to Steak Knife Off. All right, I got okay. So you're saying no? I think it's like bald, like bicking your head.
Oh man, we have a lot of people finding our stream right now, and they're getting so mad.
Yeah,
that we're not talking football. All right, listen. If David Njoku starts this week, you start him. You get him in your lineup. He's one of the best athletes in the league. There you go.
Yeah, we talk about a lot of stuff here. We talk about football and not football. Okay, guys. Right. Okay. There's other videos on the Late Round Fantasy Football YouTube channel you can check out that's all about football.
Yeah, you benched Rico Dowdle. Onto the head thing. All right, what would I need? Oh man, this is terrible.
Would you take $500,000 to be bald for the rest of your life?
I thank you for starting at.
Yeah, I just want to start a relatively decent.
Yeah, because I was like, what do I say? Would I take $500,000 over a lifetime?
Your lump sum.
Oh God, I guess I would.
Yeah, you probably would. 250.
Duh. I don't know.
Yeah, bald, like nothing on your head is a little bit more difficult.
Okay, all right. But here's the thing. Like a lot of guys who go bald, I would probably get into crazy shape, right? Like,
you have to be in good. Yeah, you either become really obese or because you're probably just depressed that you have no hair.
No,
or most people just get in really good shape.
Yeah. Right. So to compensate, I would get jacked. Right. Yeah. I would drop like 40 pounds. I just ripped everything. I have like chest muscles out to here. Right.
You get a living the stream tattoo on your left.
I'd have those shoulder. Like neck muscles, whatever they like connect the weird like linebacker.
You got some good delts.
I would have like 5 days of growth, but it would be like laser precise, like cut all over, right?
Sure.
So I'd end up actually looking pretty good. So I guess I'll go 250.
Right. So what we're learning is that the only reason you're not jacked out of your mind is because you have hair.
This is a theory of mine. If you look around, if you look at guys in their 40s. Who have a full head of glorious hair, a lot of times, they're not working out. They're not watching themselves physically, right? And that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah.
But as soon as they lose a little hair, bang, they're jacked. It happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if that's been studied before. If there's some papers out there.
That's analytics to me.
Yeah. I mean, you might not be wrong.
Oh, Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is a great example. Sorry.
Bezos is a good example. Yeah.
Crazy jacked.
Yeah. It's almost like he has billions of dollars to just do whatever he wants to his body. But yeah, sure. That's a great example. All right. Last question. This is from Slinky Pudding. Looking for insight into the stream's childhood hobbies. Who among you had a Tamagotchi? Pet rock? Sea monkeys? Pokemon? Furby? take us for a ride in the way back machine to when JJ was skateboard vomiting his dairy-filled bowels out and Denny was farting audibly in class.
Oh my God.
That was an intense one, man.
That was.
All right. So someone said you're losing your hair, not gaining testosterone. Yeah, we get it. But maybe you would inject that tea a little bit more.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's upside to it.
Anyway, what were your thing? Were you ever into Pokemon? I think that your generation, I say your generation, like we had the perfect year gap, the 4-year gap between us for you to not be into Pokemon and me to be into Pokemon.
That's exactly it. So Pokemon came to the US in 1996.
Yeah. When I was 8.
I was 13.
Right.
And I mean, I guess a 13-year-old can be into Pokemon, but I'm just telling you that no one in my friend group knew what Pokemon was. So no, right. I have no recollection of Pokemon until I was much older.
I still remember the Christmas that I got Pokemon Blue and I put it in my Game Boy and I played it on a drive from Pittsburgh to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where my grandparents lived. And it was one of the greatest trips of my life.
Really?
Yeah. Pokemon's amazing. The original Pokemon.
I remember playing a Madden Game Boy. Madden. What was the Sega?
Sega Game Gear.
I remember playing a Madden.
You played Game Gear?
Yeah, I had a Game Gear, right? And I played it all the way to North Carolina for Thanksgiving, and it was fantastic. I probably played 50 games on the way. Someone mentioned Pogs. Were you into Pogs?
Yes, very into Pogs.
I was crazy into Pogs.
I have somewhere back here. I have a slammer, like on my shelf.
Right.
An actual slammer. It's a penguin slammer. But then you also had those like bombers that were like slammers, but they were really heavy, and you would just dominate. Did you actually ever play, or did you just collect?
I did. So I wasn't even aware that you could play.
Yeah, right. That's how a lot of people felt about like Pokemon cards, because I collected Pokemon cards, but I also would play Pokemon cards with friends and stuff. And now Avery's collecting Pokemon cards. It's very crazy that they're still around, but like you can play. There's games to it, and there's games to Pokemon cards. There's games to Pogs. Pogs is like you have the Pogs stacked. You smack the slammer down, and you try to flip the Pogs.
Yes.
The goal is to make them to go either upside down or right side up, whatever one it is. And you just do that over and over again.
By the way, I have played Pokemon cards with my kid who has one of those boards where you play. And I suck because I don't know. Because you have to know the intricacies of what power up these guys have and the evolutions and whatnot. I don't know about that.
Yeah, who evolves into what? Yeah.
But I will say with the Pogs, it was for me and my cousin. It was a race to see who could get the most Power Ranger Pogs. And we were constantly buying them. I would go to Michael's, which was an arts and crafts place down the street.
Is this still not a thing, Michael's?
Is it still around? I don't
know. Time. You're making it sound like it's been gone for 14 years. I thought Michael's was still a thing.
They used to have a whole bin that literally you could like dive into it if you wanted to, but of Pogs. And so you would just get piles and piles of Pogs and go through them and be like, oh, the Green Ranger. I got the White Ranger. I got them all.
Right. Pogs were awesome. Armando says, I imagine JJ telling Avery that her cards are bad because they're newer Pokemon and not the original 151, and you're not wrong. Anything new sucks in Pokemon. The old stuff is way better. Better.
You're a purist.
Yeah. Game Gear was great though, man. I'm glad that you were a Game Gear bro. I was a Game Gear bro too.
I was. It was so much better than Game Boy. Give me a break.
Well, yeah, you had color to it. There was a color screen. It wasn't the old, just black and white stuff.
I had a weird allegiance, like a brand allegiance to Nintendo, but once I discovered Game Gear, I was like, oh, this is so much better.
What were your before we go, what were your gaming systems that you had growing up? Like what
all Nintendo. It was regular Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64, and then the Wii.
Wii. Yeah. Is that the last that you've had?
It's the last that I have. My kid has a Switch.
Okay, so you're still Nintendo.
Yeah.
We had an NES, and then the NES. Oh, you know what we had? Which I guarantee you, no one in this chat has ever heard of this. We had what's called CDI, and it was a CD that you would play, and you had this little remote with it and stuff too. You guys should Google it, CDI. But that doesn't really count. I had Game Gear, Game Boy. I was a Sega boy instead of Super Nintendo. And then I got into N64, very big N64, bro.
Oh, huge into 64.
And then my brother got into PlayStation while I got into Xbox. Once Xbox came, I was an Xbox bro for a little while. And now I'm just kind of like, whatever. Right now, I'm still an Xbox bro.
So I used to actually see people who played Sega as like the other. They were like, oh, really? You play Sega? I'm more of a Nintendo guy myself.
But so. I gotta say, Sonic 2 and Sonic 3, two of the greatest video games of all time.
Really? I don't know. I deprived myself of Sonic.
You got to play Sonic 2. Sonic 2 is like you got like Super Mario Brothers 3 is the best game ever of all time. Ever. Not even 3? Yes, where you the one that was in the movie The Wizard. Did you ever watch the movie The Wizard?
Love The Wizard. Wanted to be the Wizard.
Yeah, right. So the movie The Wizard had Super Mario Brothers 3, but Sonic 2 is kind of right below that for me. And then NHL 94 is also kind of in that tier with Sonic 2.
That was a good game. Oh,
NHL 94 is great.
QB Club 95 was my game.
I don't even know what that is.
QB Club. I don't know what.
QB. I thought you said Hubie.
No.
I was like, yeah, and NFL Quarterback Club was like a franchise that went on for a while.
The 95 version with like Bubby Brister and like Elway, Marino, Steve Young, Warren Moon.
You know that my first so right now CJ has learned touchdown, so he just goes touchdown all the time whenever we're watching football. It's very adorable.
He's learning analytics.
But my thing when I was his age was putting my fingers up in the air going Bubby for Bubby Brister because he was a Steelers quarterback.
Bubby Brister.
Yeah, so it's funny that you brought up Bubby. Anyway, this is long overdue. This podcast.
Yeah.
In terms of it's going way too long. So Denny, let everyone know where they can find you.
At CD Carter 13 on the X platform, formerly known as Twitter. You can find all my work on Roto World, including the regression files.
I'm on Twitter at LateRoundQB. Please don't be weird on Twitter. Just be normal. You can find all my stuff over on lateround.com. We love you guys. We're going to get some milkshakes. We will talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Living the Stream. We hope you enjoyed the Internet Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes now. It won't take long, it's fast. For more fantasy football info, check out
LateRound.com and NBC Sports Edge.
Hope you come back soon as we share about the teams and as we live in the stream.